Hello, this video is about running reports within Apricot and some of the benefits that come along with running reports other than just reporting for fundraising or funders and people of that nature. There's also the added value with reports in finding consolidated information. So for example here, you'll see that these different categories of reports that exist in here. What I'm going to do is look inside our after school program and see what different types of reports are in here. And so as far as that consolidated example for the benefit of reports is that there's a report, for example, that is specific to PowerSchool, and it provides the username and password for the students that we have PowerSchool information for. And so instead of being able to going into each of the clients and searching for that PowerSchool information, you can just run this report and see the list right then in there. So before I jump into any of these reports, in this action button here, you're going to see quite a few different options. With the run option, it ultimately just lets you figure out, run the standard report. Print will kind of do what it's intended to do, is just prints the report. You can export it, and it exports it into a spreadsheet. And so if you're more of a fan of dealing with information in a spreadsheet versus in the database, that option is available. And then there's this edit capability. Many of you might not actually see this edit capability. If there's anybody that is interested in having more access as far as creating and running reports, just let your supervisor know, and we can get you set up with that functionality. So here, for example, I'm going to run into this report. And the way this is set up here is that there is several fields pulled from a couple different forms within the database. Specifically, we've pulled from the client form the name and last name of the individual. Then it's pulling information from the client's after-school program registration, and so including those fields like fiscal year, after the actual after-school program they're involved with, what grade they're in, the school that they're in, and the teacher that they're in. It's kind of a pretty baseline type of report. One thing to note here is that whenever you see this information in here, it is actually clickable, and so when you do click it, it will take you to the source of that information. So here, for example, when I clicked on that report, it took me to the after-school program registration form for this individual. Close it out and return back. So another thing to note here is that there's these items up here that are called filters. And so this report already has a couple prefab filters built in there. If I click on them, let me scoot this over, you can see that there's these different filter properties. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete these and kind of start from blank. Alright, so here is the report just kind of unadulterated from its original settings. And what you're going to notice here is that there's going to be, let's scroll all the way down, 371 records at this point in time. The reason there's 371 records is it's pulling information from every fiscal year for this specific type of form. So what I want to do is narrow down my search so that I'm looking at information that is more applicable to what I need. Let's say the current fiscal year. So by selecting fiscal year, what I'm going to do here is actually switch the settings here and switch to matches any of. And the reason I default to that setting is it will show you the different types of possibilities. And here we're going to look at specifically 2014, 2015. And then when I apply that, it is going to remove any of the other fiscal year and only leave the current fiscal year information on there. But let's say I want to have more site-specific information. I'm going to add another filter on there. And then I'm going to specify what after-school program that I want to be looking at. So here again, clicking on matches any of, and it provides several different options in which I can choose from. Let's say I want to look at specifically Bryant Elementary. And I apply that information, that setting, and here we go. So we started at 371 records, and now we're down to 40. And that's kind of the basic functionality behind filters. They're a great way of slimming down what you need to look at. The reports also remember what filters you set, so if I was to exit out of this and return back into it, it would keep these filters in place. So now I'm going to back out to the beginning portion of the reports, and I'm going to pull up, let's see here, the food program reports. So here, for example, there's a bunch of different types of reports, like figuring out how many duplicated and unduplicated number of households. If I was to run this on the back end, what we see here is all the different participations for the food program. And when I scroll all the way to the bottom here, I have a setting here that tells us this distinct record ID value is ultimately telling us how many unique households came through, or unduplicated households came through during this period of time. And this shows us how many total visits had occurred during that same period of time. I'm going to show one additional report that has the use of some things like pie graphs and items of that nature. So I'll use this one here. So here, for example, this report is specific to our donor information. And what it does is it breaks down the different types of fundraising campaigns that these donations are coming from, and then it categorizes that information. We had it sorted that way so that every record is being held into that specific category. So this is just kind of a few of the examples. Actually, I'm going to show one more of what the reports are capable of doing. In this report here, this is based off the student dashboard, and so what we have here is a graph that represents the different thresholds that we want to have illustrated here. And then there's this additional feature of having outcomes being predetermined and whether or not those outcomes are met or not. If there's ever anybody, again, interested in learning more about creating reports and having more access and being able to manipulate information within the database, again, just let your supervisor know. There is a lot of robust features in here, but they're only as good as what people would like to be able to have at their fingertips and communicating that to, again, their supervisors. And that concludes the report features within Apricot. And again, if you have any questions, just contact your supervisor.